People spend more time at work than they do with their families. People spend more time at work than they do with their friends. People spend more time at work than they're asleep. And even when they're not at work, they think about work. So why is it that so many people do not actually enjoy work? They just see it as a means to earn money. I believe there's more to work than just money. Money, of course, is important, and before I joined the University of Bath to do physics, I took up a job in the summer. And that job in the summer was working for a dairy factory. And really what it was all about for me was to earn some money. And the job entailed getting yogurt pots off a assembly line, and you pick them up and you put them in boxes. And the biggest variety I had when we went from a vanilla flavor to strawberry flavor. That was how exciting that job was. So yes, of course, you do need to make money. But that job really made me think, is this something I want to do for the rest of my life? And the answer was no, I don't. I do not want to do this for the rest of my life. And I believe organizations can create something much more than just giving people money. They can create something where people can actually really use their skills and talents and be really motivated at what they do. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And I believe there's really three key elements to this. And first and foremost, I think it's values. A good leading organization must be based on solid and common values. And these are values that are shared by the people. These are people working together with the same vision and the same view to achieve the same goals. Now, that's easily said. Many organizations recognize that actually having core values where people share it and work together do give them a leading advantage. And one of the organizations we work with understood that their team and their people perhaps weren't so values-led, and they decided to do something about it. So they, like a true management team would do, they locked themselves into a room for a day, a full day, and they came out and they dreamt up some beautiful values, 5 fantastic values. I can't remember what they were. Not only that, they made big posters, they had leaflets, they did some nice graphics with it, they pasted it all around the organization. And 3 months later, they realized nothing had changed. Absolutely nothing had changed. Their team, their people, they weren't values-led. They had nice posters. But it's not the posters on the wall. It's actually what people do. It's the decisions they make. It's how they behave. Values are alive. It's the decisions people make when times are good, but actually more importantly, when times are bad. That's when you really create a values-led organization. Anyway, it didn't work, so in came a new plan, and this organization then decided that they were going to enforce values on their people. So what they did, as part of the annual performance review, they put in a age-page template, and everyone, before they did their performance review at the end of the year, had to complete how they lived the values that year and what they've done to really demonstrate their values. Now, it was like cramming for an exam. People were running around the corridors trying to remember what those values were. They completed the paperwork, and 2 days later, they completely forgot what those values were. And I guess you can't enforce values upon people. It's what it's inside. And for me, it really starts with recruitment. So it's getting the right people on board with the right values. And I would urge people, and I would urge organizations, to look beyond just what's on the CV. People have beautiful skills, they have great academic achievements, but it's also the cultural fit, and it's what people are really about and what makes them tick that makes a real difference. And we've, in our organization, found some real gems where actually perhaps people didn't tick all the academic boxes or the skills boxes, but in terms of cultural fit, they were perfect. And you can teach people skills. You can't teach them personality. So get that right. One of the things we also do is when we interview people, we ask them questions to test their values. And an example we have, which is based on a real example, we've had one of our big corporate clients. They overpaid us by £10,000. For the corporate client, it was probably just a drop in the ocean. But it was £10,000. And the question we ask our interviewees to say, what would you do with that £10,000? Now, There's no right and there's no wrong answer. And some brilliant ideas came out from we're going to throw a big party to we share it between our team. Some people wanted to donate it to charity. The answer we were looking in our organization was you give it back. You give it back to the client. It's not our money. It doesn't belong to us. And if I was a client, I would have wanted to be treated that way as well. Which is what we did in that particular example. And actually the trust and respect that we created with this big corporate has earned that 10,000 back 10 times over, I think. So those are some of the questions to really get the right people on board. Now, once you've got the right people, secondly, you need to understand what their motivation is. What really drives people? Why do they come to work? We talked about money, but there's other things. Some people want to achieve great heights. They want to achieve results. Some people enjoy working with other people. Some people like to develop their teams. Personally, for me, I like to make a difference. I like to make a difference for my clients. I like to make a difference to my people. And most of all, I like variety. I hate routine. So actually, doing something different every day, that's something that really motivates me. And I think if you ask students, or certainly people that leave school and they apply for their first job, and they look for two things often. One of them is salary, and secondly is holidays. And the reason they want holidays, because they feel that they can do more meaningful things with their holidays than they do at work. And I argue different. I think you can make work meaningful. So you understand people's motivations. And do you know how you do that? You ask them. You ask your people, what are the 5 key things that motivate you? And I'm sure you get a very interesting answer. And it's better than second guessing. You get it firsthand. And knowing what motivates people then means you can actually adjust the roles to suit that. So you got your values-based people, you know what their motivation is. So thirdly, what you need to do is you need to create the environment. You need to create the right environment where people can flourish. You've recruited smart people, so trust those people, support those people in making smart decisions. Give them the freedom to do great things. Don't restrict them. And there's so many organizations and businesses that have rules, they have policies, they have unwritten rules. There's so many blockers in the way that stops people from doing great things. So I take an example. We have one of the businesses we work with. They must have the biggest employee handbook ever. It is about this thick that someone has dreamt up. And when you join that organization, they do an induction. So they do a full day induction, and they show you around the building. And one of the trips is they show you around the lavatories. So they show you around the toilets, and they tell you, make sure you wash your hands. Did you know that the tap could be hot? And also, if there's water on the floor, it could get slippery. Now, I've got a 3-year-old son. If I tell him, make sure you wash your hands after the toilet, he goes, I know that, Mummy. You don't need to tell me that. Imagine that you have a team of adults being shown around on how to use the toilet. Now, is that really going to create high performance? No, I don't think so. And just imagine the rules that someone has written. Someone's also going to have to enforce them as well. So the amount of effort and the amount of waste that's created by just those policies that really do not add any value whatsoever. And I would ask organizations to look at policies, rules, processes they introduce and really question, does this add value? Does this really create high performance? When I left university, one of the first jobs I had was an organization, and they were obsessed about effort. And they felt effort was directly related to performance. So in order to enforce this, they had a clocking mechanism. So you had a little card, and as you came in at 9 o'clock, you stamped your card in the machine. And when you left at 5 o'clock, you stamped your card again. If you left at 10 to 5, oh dear, you were in trouble. And there was a real clocking mechanism to track how much effort you put in. So again, what happens? People focus on how they can actually come up with cunning and smart ways to beat the system. So there were hundreds of ways in place that you can actually clock in and clock out without actually doing the time. So instead of people focusing on performance and doing the job that they were employed to do, all they did, they focused on how they could beat the clock. So how could they do things to get around it? As I said, it doesn't create high performance. And I'm a great believer in taking away those rules, taking away those policies. You have good people, let them do good things. There is a balance, because you don't want complete chaos. You don't want people turning up and just do whatever they think they fancy doing that day. So there is clearly boundaries. And I guess the concept that we push for is something that is called just enough. It's just enough control so that the management and the organization knows what is going on, but it's also just enough control so that the people can really do meaningful things and really have the freedom and ownership to do great things. Now, those three things, if you've got the right people with the right values, you understand their motivation, and then you have the right environment, can really help organizations and people achieve great heights. And it's not easy. We learn all the time. And we had a turning point ourselves in that we had a brilliant consultant. He lived the values, he was smart, he was intelligent, he delivered great work. He had a young family, and he had another baby on the way, and was traveling a lot. He was away from home a lot, and he panicked. A local company offered him a job and said, "We've got this particular role for you." And he jumped ship. He left our organization, which is a very sad thing. If you've recruited someone good and you've trained them and you've coached them, for them to leave, it's kind of a failure, really. Anyway, what happened? This chap went on to this new particular role, which was close to home. But he quickly realized they were not values aligned. They did not live the values. They did not share the values that he had. Secondly, his motivation of a good work-life balance was one thing, but he actually realized that he wanted to make a difference. He wanted to achieve results. He wanted to do good things, and he didn't get the opportunity to do that. And thirdly, before he joined, he was given the opportunity to manage a £1 million budget. And as it turned out, he had no control over that. He had no decision power. Everything had to go up the ladder, up the hierarchy. So he didn't have the freedom. He couldn't make a difference. Now, the really good thing about this story is that we stayed in touch, and 3 months later, he rejoined our organization. And I think the key learning point sat with the organization, not so much with him, is how could we lose someone that is so competent and so values aligned? And really for us, it's understanding that motivation. So what does motivate someone? And then giving them the freedom to do that. So as a result, we managed to introduce a much more flexible working practice where people manage their own time. They can pick the kids up from schools and finish their work later. As long as there's results and as long as the outcomes are there, you can actually create a very high-performing organization. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't build a business, you build people, and people will build your business. Thank you.